Alright folks, welcome back to Callahan's Garage. My name's Callahan and today we are back on our 62 Beetle project. We're going to do door panels and I'm going to show you step by step how to do it. Hey, I'm Callahan. Welcome to Callahan's Garage. Alright folks, welcome back to the shop. Today we are going to do door panels on our Beetle, and as you can see, these are absolutely trashed. We've gotten a bunch of moisture into the door through our weather strip and everything, and these have gotten wet. They weren't installed correctly to begin with, so we've got some new door panels. We're going to rip these off of here. We're going to install our new ones correctly so we won't have to worry about this in the future. Alright, so replacing your door panels, relatively straightforward, not a super difficult job. There's a few tools that you're going to need. We're going to need a small punch and a hammer, a couple of trim tools, whether you've got a clip tool like this or just a little plastic prying tool, that'll work fine. And then if you have a later model car, you're also going to need a Phillips head screwdriver. So then we're also going to need our new door panels. So whether you get some new ones like we did, I got these from Wolfsburg West. These are just TMI original style door panels. And there's all kinds of different door panels at different price points and styles and everything. Just get what you want. Or if you've got some good used ones, that's totally fine too. Then we'll also need new door panel clips. You want to get new clips. You don't want to be trying to reuse crusty old ones. And then we also need the rubber seals that go around our door panel clips. So the next thing we need is something that uses a vapor barrier, and that's where people will mess this up. They will install their new door panels without a vapor barrier, and they'll get some moisture in the door, and it'll end up wrecking the door panels just like mine are. So you can buy pre-cut vapor barriers from a couple of different places, and I've done that before, and I've found that a lot of times they're really thin, they're really flimsy, they'll tear really easily. Even just installing the door panels, you can accidentally tear them. So I'm going to use a black hefty bag, and you can buy sheet plastic or whatever, but you want something that's heavy duty, that's not going to rip behind the door panel when you're installing it. And then we need something to stick this to the door. I like to just use some spray adhesive. I've also used double-sided tape before. One isn't really any better than the other. I just found that the spray adhesive is a little quicker, a little bit easier. Okay, so first thing we need to do is get all these old door panels off of here. I'm going to show you how to do that on this one, and then the procedure for the other door panels is going to be basically the same. So first thing we need to do, we need to get our window crank and our interior door handle off. So to do that, this little trim collar is just going to push out, and then that's going to give us access to our pin here that holds these on. So all we need to do is take our punch, take our hammer, and we can grab this collar, push it into the door, and then that's going to allow us to get our punch onto the little roll pin that holds this handle on. And then this should, and that little roll pin should be able to just tap out. Sometimes they really grow together, and it does take a little bit of effort to get them out. Just be mindful that you don't go shooting these pins across your shop, especially if you haven't gotten new ones. And then once you get this little pin out, you should be able to just pull this door handle off. Sometimes they will be stuck as well. In which case we can take our trim tool here and see if we can't pry this thing off. Just be mindful that you don't break your plastic trim piece here. There we go. And we'll do the same thing with our window crank. So now that we got both of those off, we're ready to start prying our door panel off. Now you can see, you know, like I said, mine's gotten wet and it's already pulled loose here on the bottom. So I'm basically just going to be able to yank it off of here. But if yours is still installed nice and tight against the door, this is where you're going to have to get your trim tools and get behind this thing and pop it loose. Now, if your door is really nice, put some tape on it, something like that, so you don't scratch your door up. The other thing you can do is kind of start down here in the bottom corner. That way, if you do accidentally scratch it, it's going to be down here where it's a little less noticeable. But like I said, we can just take our tools, get behind this door panel, and most of the time you can get these clips to just pop loose pretty easy. And then once you get it started, like I said, if your door panel is in as bad a shape as mine, you can just grab it and just kind of give it a swift yank, and they'll typically pop off pretty easily. So now all of my clips are loose, but our handle is still holding the door panel on. And there's really nothing to this. All you need to do, grab this handle, lift up, and the whole thing will come off. It's just got this little notch that it sits onto on our bracket on the back side of the door panel. So also note these springs that sit behind our window crank and our door handle, and these are what keep tension on the back side of our door panel. So make sure you hang on to these and you reinstall them. Okay, so now we're going to get all the other interior panels off. Like I said, this one's the most complicated one because it's got this little pull handle. The driver's side, same exact procedure. The rear panels, they just have the clips. All we need to do is get behind them and pop them loose. Okay, so if you have a later model car, your door handle and your window crank will look a little bit differently. And I'm going to show you these on my wife's Cabriolet, but this is exactly the same as a later model Beetle. So you're going to have this little trim piece around your door handle, and then we got a little pocket in here. And this pocket will just pop out with our trim tool. And then behind that is a Phillips head screw. We can take this loose and this whole trim bezel will come out, and that'll allow our door panel to come free. Okay, so then our window crank is going to be very similar. This outer trim piece is just going to pop loose. A lot of times you can grab it with your fingers and just swing it out of the way, or if you need your trim tool, use it. And then we've just got a Phillips head screw right in the center, and that will come loose. Butterfingers over here. Okay. So then we also need to remove the rear seat in order to access both of our rear door panels. So bottom just pulls out. So for the seat back, we've just got our 2 pivot bolts on the bottom. So it's just one 14mm bolt on each side. Take those out and then we can pull our seat back out. Okay, so now we've got all of our door panels pulled off, front ones and rear ones. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take a few minutes to clean my doors up. We've got all of our old door panel clip boots we need to pull out. And then you can see I've got a couple of door panel clips that stayed stuck in the door. I need to pull those out. Then I'm going to take a few minutes to vacuum out the bottoms of my doors, vacuum out the inside of my rear quarter panels, wipe everything down, get everything cleaned up as good as I can. And another thing I recommend you do is get some cavity wax or some spray paint or something and spray down in the inside of your doors after you get them cleaned out really well. And that's just going to help to prevent any more corrosion on the inside of your doors. So anything like that that you can think of while you have your doors apart, it's a good idea to just go ahead and do it. Okay, so we've got our door all cleaned up. We're ready to start putting everything back together. And the first thing we want to do before we put our new door panel on, like I mentioned, we want to make a vapor barrier to seal off the interior of the door. And basically what that's going to do is that's going to completely seal up this opening so that any moisture, any rain, anything that gets into our door through our exterior window seals, because that's going to happen, we're going to get some moisture in the door, This is going to seal it up and keep that moisture from getting to the back side of our door panel. So I've taken my trash bag. Like I said, you know, you can use plastic sheeting, you can use pretty much anything, but most everybody's got a trash bag laying around. And what we're gonna do, we're just gonna take this and we're gonna glue it up here, and then we're gonna come back and we'll trim it all up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put a layer of spray adhesive on this top. I'm gonna get it stuck up here, and then I'm just gonna kind of work my way around, get it glued down, get it sealed up all the way around, and then I'll trim off the excess. So there we go, super easy, super simple. Like I said, doing it with the spray adhesive makes it really easy. Basically all we got to do, give it a second to tack up and then stick this thing on there and it's going to stay. And then you can see I just took my razor knife, trimmed around the excess, and we still have enough left from our one garbage bag to do the other door. So I'm going to jump over there and do the other door real quick. Okay, so now that we've got our vapor barriers installed, we're ready to install the seals for all of our new door panel clips, and they're just going to press into all these holes that are around the perimeter of the door. So literally just take them, push them in. There's nothing to it. Just work your way around. Make sure you put one in every single clip hole. And you don't want to skimp on these. You want to make sure you have them, because every single one of these holes is another point where moisture can get into the door panel. So we've got to make sure that these are sealed up. Also, these rubber boots will help your door panel clips grab a lot better, and your door panel will stay seated tighter with these boots. And then the ones that are under your plastic, just find them with your finger and then use your screwdriver or whatever to poke through them, and then you can push your new seal in. Okay, so we got our doors fully prepped. We're ready to start getting the door panels ready to go on. So we've got all new door panel clips that we need to install onto the door panel. But before we do that, I'm going to do something I haven't really done before, and I'm going to Scotch guard the entire back side of my door panels. And this is just going to give me an additional layer of protection against any moisture or anything that would get at this fiberboard. All of your aftermarket, you know, reproduction door panels and stuff like this, they are this fiberboard material that are just upholstered. You can get ABS plastic door panels and then cover them yourself. So like if you're doing custom door panels, that's definitely the way to go. And it'll hold up indefinitely, whereas this fiberboard is going to get brittle over time anyway. But hopefully, like I said, this will give us that added layer of protection, and we won't have to worry about these in the future, because I know that my doors aren't in the best shape. They don't have good window scrapers in them right now, so we're going to get some moisture into these doors. Okay, so we're putting our new door panel clips on, and more times than not, the door panel clip is going to be squeezed together a little bit too much. So I'm not sure if you'll be able to see this, but what you end up having to do is take the door panel clips and take your pliers and just kind of open them up a little bit, especially on these door panels that have this welting around the edge. So most of the time it needs to just open up just a little bit so that it can slip into the hole and then over the material so that it gets into place correctly. Okay, so we got our door panel ready to go. We got all of our clips installed. So before we just start slamming this thing up here and putting our clips in, what we want to do is we're going to want to kind of place it up in here, make sure all of our clips look like they're going to line up, and then put the door panel on. That way we're not having to try to adjust clips and change the angle of clips once we start popping this thing into place. So like I said, I'm just going to kind of set this up into place, make sure my clips are going to line up for the most part. And we can tweak this a little bit once we start installing it, but we don't want to have to, like I said, be taking clips out and readjusting them. So it looks pretty good. So basically what I like to do is kind of just pick a corner and pop one in and then work my way around. And when you're popping these clips in, you want to make sure that you're putting pressure directly on the back side of the clip. If you push around the clip, a lot of times you'll end up with an indent where the clip is, and you'll be able to see it after the door panel is installed. Also, don't forget to add your springs behind the door panel. I'm missing the ones from this side, so I'm just going to put one on each side for now. Okay, so we got the driver's side fully installed. Looks fantastic. Actually ended up taking the spring that goes behind our door handle out because it was pushing the door panel out too much, and it was actually making it bow up in the center, and it looked terrible. So this is currently with no springs behind either one of our handles, and it looks totally fine. So that's one of those things, you know, you just kind of have to play some of this by ear, and if it ends up looking goofy, compromise. Okay, so we're ready to jump over to the passenger side now. I've got this panel already Scotch guarded all on the back side. So we need to install all of our clips just like we did before. And then we also have the grab handle and bracket that we need to install on our passenger side. And most of the time, these will only be on the passenger side door panel for whatever reason. You can add these to the driver's side, but if you add one to the driver's side on the earlier cars, you will also need to get that interior bracket that bolts into the door so that it has the hook for our bracket to grab onto. Okay, so all of our clips are installed. Now we need to install our new pull handles. So we got brand new pull handles, brand new brackets, and these simply bolt through the door panel. We see we've got our two mount studs here, and those mount studs are going to go through these two holes here. And a lot of times on these aftermarket door panels, these center holes will already be cut out and they'll just be upholstered over. On these, we need to knock out these little plugs, and then we can cut a little access for our studs to come through. So I'm just going to take my razor knife, and I'm going to be super careful just clipping these couple little tabs so we can get these out. I don't want to cut all the way through my fabric on the other side. Okay, so now that I have my plugs pulled out, I'm just going to cut a small little X through my upholstery, and that's going to allow my studs to just poke through there. And that's all we need, just a small little spot. Now we can take our door handle, make sure we put it right side up, put that through there. Then we're going to take our bracket. This bracket is absolutely necessary. A lot of people will forget these, and this is what hooks onto our door. If you don't install this bracket, when you yank on this handle, it's only pulling on the door panel. This bracket is going to allow it to tie into the actual door structure so that this bracket has some support and is actually pulling on the door rather than just the door panel. Okay, ready to go. Okay, so we're ready to install our second door panel. You can see I've taken a little bit of extra precaution. I've put some masking tape on the top edge of my door right here. And that's because we have to take our door panel and slide it down onto this bracket for our grab handle. So when you're installing this, we have to get this bracket for our grab handle to hook onto here. So we have to kind of take the door panel, push it in, and then slide it down. And it can be really easy to scratch your door right here with our door panel clip. So you have to really be careful when you're doing this side. The other thing you can do is you can kind of pull the top of it back, or if you have a second pair of hands, that's really helpful. But especially if you have really nice paint, you want to be kind of cautious when you're doing this. So remember, right here in the middle of the door, we have this bar with our hook that's going to grab onto our bracket right here for our pull handle. So we've got to slot this down into this bracket here. And you can see I haven't cut my vapor barrier or anything. I'm just going to allow the bracket to kind of push down through this as it installs. So like I said, just be kind of cautious. Watch your door panel clips. I'm going to try to just kind of bow this out. And like I said, this can be really tricky to do because you can't really see, you can't really get it exactly where you want it. Having a second pair of hands definitely helps. Okay, so we got our passenger side on here now, and you can see now that we've got our grab handle hooked onto that bracket correctly. This is plenty sturdy, and we're not gonna have to worry about yanking our door panel off or anything when your passenger goes to close their door. So now we can put our window crank and our door handle back on here. Okay, so to reinstall these is pretty straightforward. Like I said, we're putting these on without the springs. The springs in this particular instance ended up pushing the door panel out too much and it looked funny. So I don't have the springs behind both of these, but in some cases you may need to put those springs back behind these in order to keep tension out against our little trim piece. So you're just going to take these, set your little trim piece in place, put your door handle at the angle that you want it, press inwards on it, and then we can take and tap our pin back in here. And a lot of times this can be kind of tricky to hold tension and hold your punch, so you may need a second set of hands to help you with this as well. There we go. And then we can do the same thing with our window crank, and I usually try to match up the angle of my door handle and my window crank, at least when the window's in the up position. When the window's rolled down, a lot of times it'll land in a different spot, but same thing. Get our trim piece, set it at the angle, tap your pin in place. So same treatment for our rear door panels. We just have a handful of clips. The rears only have clips up the front side and the top side. And then we have another little punch out for the bolt for our seat back. Okay, so we got this side in. These rear ones can be kind of tricky because they have to sit really far back in here, and a lot of times they'll kind of bind up on your headliner. But the easiest way is to really just start down at this corner, and like we mentioned before, we only have clips up the front and across the top of it. So a lot of times it's really tricky to get your clips aligned perfectly, so you just kind of start down here, get this clip in, work your way up. You may have to reach behind the panel, adjust your clips and get them to clip in kind of one at a time and work your way around. So now we'll put the other side in, and then we can put our seat back in here, and we'll put our pivot bolts for our seats in, and that will hold the bottom edge of the door panel in place. So there we go. We got our other door panel in, we got our seat back in place, just our 2 pivot bolts down there on the bottom. They should go right through the pre-cut holes that we had in our door panels, and everything is looking much better now. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up for our door panel install. Relatively straightforward, not a super difficult job, just a handful of things that can be a little fiddly, a little frustrating, so just take your time, make sure everything goes together correctly the first time. That way you're not damaging your door panels and they're not going to be flopping loose or anything like that. But if you got any questions, put them in the comments, I'll get to them. Otherwise, we're going to keep working on this thing in the next couple videos. We got some more content coming up, so see you guys next time.